scrimmage and they push back.
Give me Michelle. Give me
I lost my grandfather 1 year ago, on the day after my 19th birthday. It was all so quick and sudden. I never did get to say goodbye or go to his funeral. When I returned to the house in the spring of 2015, I couldn't help but feel a different dynamic within the familiar domain. I found myself drawn to the places in the house where my grandfather frequented. By exploring both the inside and the outside of the house on West 48th Street, I was constantly encountering the absence of my grandfather. He hardly ever left the house.
60 years young.
Only once every 5 months or so to visit my family in Columbus. My grandmother always brought home the groceries, fed him drive-through meals from Arby's and Dairy Queen, and bought him cigarettes for many, many years. I wanted to capture that lingering essence of my grandfather and the house where he frequented before it was lost to my memory. The death of my grandfather detonated a kind of emotional bomb within me. Never have I experienced the death of someone so immediate, nor have I been able to explain exactly why his passing affected me as it did. We were never that close in real life, just a hug hello and a hug goodbye, but he was always this constant backdrop in my life. When he died, and I didn't get to attend his funeral, I felt like a part of me was left open and exposed. I had no closure, no resolve for these feelings of sudden emptiness. The emotions still linger within me, even 1 year later.
Well, it was in 1959. I really didn't know him. A friend of mine said she was going to fix me up with somebody. And then we just rode around, I think, and just stopped and got a Coke or something. I really don't remember that day. But my first impression of him was I didn't care for him. There was just something that I thought, why did I do this? But my first impression, I didn't. And I don't know, maybe he didn't like me either. But then he started calling me, and then we started to go out, and then I kind of liked him. When he got back from Korea, he was in Korea for 13 months, and then he re-upped for another year. Why, I'll never know, because, you know, we could have been out.
And Grandma always laughs that they never thought he'd actually get drafted. So when he did, I think they were taken by surprise.
He was stationed at Fort Lewis in Washington, and we left in, I think it was March. And we traveled to Washington, Tacoma.
But he did what he needed to do, and he didn't. I mean, he did well when he was in Korea. He was, whatever it was that he did, which I really still to this day don't exactly know what it was that he did, he was very highly thought of.
Do you regret going?
Oh, sometimes I do, and sometimes it was a good experience. And that's where I got Patty.
You were born at a military base, so like you're kind of an Army brat.
Right, but we left Washington when I was just 3 months old, so I really have no memory of it. At that time, Pappy was dismissed from the Army, so by the time we got back to Ohio, he was no longer in service.
And so you drove all the way across country?
And then we had to drive all the way back. He was supposed to be out there for, I think, 16 months, but we only had to stay there 13. And then he finished up at, I can't remember, I think he went down to Georgia.
Okay.
Fort Gordon rings a bell to me, but that was years ago. So
I was very proud of the fact that he did serve, and I didn't realize that until later in life when I understood what it meant to have, people in the military. And of course, the older you get, the more you realize the sacrifices that people make along the way. He did not like to talk much about that. Pappy wasn't a big talker, period, and he really didn't like to talk much about himself. He was very, very humble and very low-key, and he'd be happy to listen if you wanted to talk. He didn't talk much about himself.
One word kind of about his personality, or like kind of who he was or what he meant to you? Like how would you like sum him up?
I would say he was very backward.
Why?
He would, if anybody would come to the house, he would talk to them. But he wasn't one to go out and make conversation.
Yeah.
He would just, be content just to sit.
If you could pin down one word, could you?
I like introvert because that really describes him.
So is that, why we don't know much about his childhood?
That's why we don't know much, because he himself didn't talk much about it. But I don't know if many people know this, or I think anybody that really ever had a conversation with him, he had a very wry sense of humor. He would throw out little zingers, he called them, every once in a while. He would be sitting there and you'd think he wasn't paying attention, and then he'd make some little comment that was very funny, and that's what I think of him.
Yeah. When you met him, was he crazy about trains? Like, when did the train obsession start?
I don't think he ever said anything about trains until way after we were married.
Did he ever say why? He had one as a kid, but
he just liked trains, and he'd never been on a train. They have trains, you can go different places around here, but you have to go to Steubenville. He never wanted to go. We were very happy here. And then when we got our grandchildren, that was his pride and joy. The three of them he dearly loved, but there was something special about Bethany.
Like I said, I was proud of my dad for what he did for us, for his country, for his family. But I was most proud of what he did for you guys.
Bethany, he always wanted to know, what's Bethany doing? Is she okay? And the only thing he ever said was he wanted to live long enough to see her graduate from high school. So he did make it there.